There is no thunder when a galaxy begins to die, no great rip, no cataclysm that shakes the heavens. The universe prefers endings that are quiet. It is not the way we often imagine it. Not an abrupt collapse, not a sudden vanishing, but a slow, almost imperceptible change, as though the cosmos itself hesitates before letting go. In the dark vault of the universe, a galaxy can drift toward its death for billions of years. The process is so gradual that, if you could watch in real time, you would see nothing at all. Stars would still be shining. Dust clouds would still be drifting in the interstellar deep. But somewhere in its heart, the balance would have shifted. The future would have already begun its slow descent toward stillness. The quiet before the last light is not truly empty. It is heavy with memory. Every star is a story. Every cluster an archive of collisions and births. And these stories keep shining long after their endings are set in motion. Light, after all, does not die where it is born. It travels. Even as the galaxy prepares to dim, the light it cast a billion years ago is still on its way to somewhere else. In this way, a galaxy carries two versions of itself. The one that exists in the present, bound to entropy and the slow cooling of its fires, and the one scattered across the universe in particles of light, each a messenger from an earlier time. Somewhere far away, another galaxy may be just now receiving the light from a star that has already gone cold. And somewhere else, perhaps no one is there to see it at all. The light still travels, even without an eye to receive it. If the universe could feel, if there were some great hidden sense stretched across the filaments of the cosmic web, perhaps it would register this fading as we might feel the last ember of a fire in our hands, a warmth becoming memory, a brightness folding back into dark. A dying galaxy does not announce itself in its own skies. The beings who might live there, if such beings exist, would not notice an ending on the scale of human lifetimes. The stars closest to them would shine as they always had. The planets would circle as they always had. It is only when you pull back far enough to see the sweep of millions of years that you realize the trajectory, that the fuel of creation is being spent, that the grand spiral is slowing. There are many reasons why a galaxy's life might tilt toward silence. Some run out of cold gas, the raw material for new stars. Others are starved by their neighbors, stripped of matter by gravitational tides. Some fall into the hearts of larger galaxies, their stars stretched into streams, and their light absorbed into something greater. And some simply age, their youngest, hottest stars burning out, leaving only the slow, dim embers of long-lived red dwarfs. Yet, whatever the cause, the first chapter of a galaxy's death is always the same, a period of near-invisible change. The structures still hold. The orbits still dance. But creation is no longer keeping pace with loss. The balance has tipped. This moment, the quiet before the last light, may last longer than all of recorded human history multiplied 1,000 times over. It is not an ending we could witness in a single breath, or even in the breath of our species. But on the cosmic scale, it is already the last act. Imagine, if you will, the great spiral arms of such a galaxy. In the past, they were bright with clusters of blue stars, short-lived, hot, brilliant. Now, fewer appear. The dust lanes that once glowed with the energy of newborn suns have thinned. The great nurseries of light are emptying. What remains are the elders, the older, cooler stars, burning steadily but without the flamboyant light of their younger kin. The color of the galaxy shifts subtly, almost imperceptibly, toward the red. From a distance, this change is like the cooling of an iron left in the fire, still warm, still glowing faintly, but no longer replenished by new heat. And in this great, slow fade, there is a beauty that is not about brightness but about endurance. For billions of years, galaxies have lived and died in this universe without witness. Their births were not applauded, their deaths not mourned. The cosmos does not pause for ceremony. And yet, here we are, looking out across space, naming these moments, imagining them. We become the witnesses that the universe did not ask for, but somehow now has. There is a strange intimacy in watching something that will never know you are watching it. Perhaps that is why this quiet before the last light feels so profound, because in some small way, by noticing it, we keep part of it alive. And yet, the galaxy is not aware of our gaze. It continues its slow drift through the void, bound to the gravitational threads that weave all matter into the great web. Around it, the rest of the universe carries on. Other galaxies colliding, quasars blazing, clusters assembling and dispersing. The death of one galaxy changes little in the grand design. The universe is vast enough to cradle both endings and beginnings at the same time, but in the scale of its own life. This is the moment when something shifts forever. The clock, already ancient, begins to wind down. Every star that burns now does so without a successor. Every burst of light is one step closer to the last. The quiet is not silence. It is filled with the hum of cosmic background radiation, the faint music of particles and fields still dancing to the rhythm of physical law. It is filled with the motion of dark matter, unseen but present, keeping the galaxy's shape intact even as the stars it holds grow dim. It is filled with the faint, stretched-out echoes of past supernovae, their energy still rippling through interstellar space. If we could stand at the edge of this galaxy, looking inward, we would see a place still alive, but we would know it is living in its twilight. And if we could step back, watching across millions of years, we would see the light fade slowly from its spiral arms until only the red dwarfs remain, their glow too faint to be seen from far away. Eventually, the galaxy would become invisible to the eyes of creatures like us, detectable only by instruments that can sense the whispers of its mass. This is the first stage of an ending, not darkness, but the slow gathering of darkness. Not a final silence, but the deepening of quiet. The universe has always been patient with such transitions. It has no need for haste. And so, in this moment, the quiet before the last light, the galaxy keeps turning, unaware that it has already entered its final chapter. The stars keep burning. The planets keep circling. The light keeps traveling outward, carrying a story that will outlast the thing it came from. If the universe feels anything at all in this moment, perhaps it is the way a shoreline feels the tide begin to recede. Not a loss. Not yet, but the beginning of one. The quiet holds. The last light has not yet come, but it is on its way. Every star is a historian. Not in words, not in ink, but in light. The photons they release are messages cast into the dark, carrying with them the temperature, the age, the motion, and the story of the place they came from. When we speak of seeing a galaxy, what we truly mean is catching its memories. We do not see it as it is, but as it once was, sometimes millions, sometimes billions of years in the past. Every glance into the night sky is an act of time travel, and every act of time travel is also an act of witnessing what no longer exists exactly as we see it. Light is the language of the cosmos, and it speaks across impossible distances. A blue-white photon, born in the heart of a young, massive star, may spend hundreds of thousands of years pushing through the layers of plasma around it before finally escaping into space. From there, it may wander for millions or billions more, crossing the emptiness, brushing past drifting dust, bending subtly under the pull of gravity wells. And if it is lucky or unlucky, depending on your view, it will arrive somewhere it can be received. It may fall upon the surface of a planet and warm its soil. It may strike the mirror of a telescope, transforming into an image that human eyes can see. Or it may strike nothing at all, journeying onward into the void until the end of time. This means that a dying galaxy is never truly gone the moment its light ceases to be born. The light that already left will go on telling its story long after the fires have gone out. Somewhere in the deep reaches of space, civilizations that rise in the far future may look up and see it as it once was, alive with brilliant spirals and dust lanes, never knowing that, in their own moment of now, it is nothing but cold remnants. In a way, the galaxy cheats its own death by allowing light to escape in all directions. This is its archive, not stored in stone or metal, but scattered across billions of cubic light years. The universe itself is the library, and every photon is a page. But the universe is a strange librarian. It does not keep all pages safe. Some are lost to collisions with dust grains, absorbed and re-emitted as heat. Some are deflected by gravitational lenses, twisted into paths they were never meant to take. Some are stretched into invisibility by the expansion of space itself, their once energetic blue shifting down to red and eventually beyond the range of light that eyes can detect. The further a photon travels, the more it is changed by the journey. By the time it reaches us, it is not quite the same messenger that left the galaxy. The story it carries has been bent, faded, whispered instead of shouted. And yet, it arrives. And in that arrival, the memory it holds becomes real again, if only for a moment. Astronomers can read these messages in extraordinary detail. The subtle patterns in a spectrum of light can reveal the presence of certain elements, the temperature of the star, the speed at which it is moving away from us. Even the dust between galaxies leaves its faint fingerprints, dimming and reddening the light as it passes. It is as though every photon carries not just the memory of its source, but also a travel diary of the journey it took to get here. And because the universe has no single direction for time except forward, light can only tell us the past. We can never see a galaxy as it is right now, only as it was when the light left it. Which means that, for all we know, many of the galaxies we observe today are already dead. The deaths have already happened. We are only waiting for the news to arrive. This makes the act of observing a galaxy both a joy and a quiet kind of mourning. We celebrate the beauty we see, knowing it may be beauty from long ago, beauty that no longer exists in the present tense. And perhaps that is why starlight moves us so deeply, because it is not just light, but memory, traveling endlessly to find someone, anyone, who will receive it. Even the faintest, most distant smudge in a telescope holds this kind of meaning. That smudge could be billions of years old, and each photon from it may have traveled longer than life has existed on Earth. They have crossed through times when galaxies were closer together, when the cosmic background radiation was warmer, when stars were being born in great numbers. The light remembers all of it, though it cannot speak it directly. When the last light leaves a dying galaxy, the final chapter of its luminous history is written. That light will still be traveling long after the galaxy's black holes have evaporated, long after the stars have gone dark. It will continue to move outward, carrying a message into a future where perhaps there will be no one left to read it. Yet, the universe does not seem to care whether its messages are received. It sends them anyway. Galaxies release their light without knowing who, if anyone, will catch it. Perhaps this is the most honest kind of storytelling, to speak because the speaking itself is enough. And so, every time we look into the night and see a galaxy glowing faintly in the deep, we are not looking at a thing as it is, but as it was. We are holding in our eyes a memory written in starlight, a memory so vast, so patient, that it has crossed the universe to find us. Galaxies do not vanish in a moment. They do not flare and then disappear like a match in the wind. Their endings are long, stretched across timescales so vast that, to human eyes, they appear eternal. The long dimming begins quietly. The youngest, brightest stars, the blue giants, burn through their fuel quickly, ending their lives in a few million years. They go first, one by one, their deaths marked by bursts of light that momentarily defy the fading. But each supernova is also a step toward stillness. The brilliant blues disappear, leaving behind older, cooler stars whose light leans toward gold and red. The great factories of new stars, the nebulae, the sprawling clouds of gas and dust, grow less active. The raw material for creation is no longer abundant. What remains is locked in small reservoirs scattered across the galactic disk, too diffused to collapse into the dense knots where stars are born. Without fresh stars to replenish the brightness, the galaxy's glow begins to soften. This is not a single, clean transition. It is a slow rearrangement, like the turning of leaves in autumn. The spiral arms lose their sharpness. The contrasts between the bright star clusters and the dark dust lanes blur. The overall light of the galaxy fades fraction by fraction, imperceptible to any creature living within it, but visible to the patient eye of time itself. If you could watch this process sped up over billions of years, you would see the galaxy shift in hue, from a mix of young blue and white stars to a warmer, more amber tone. The reds deepen as the population of small, long-lived stars comes to dominate. The galaxy becomes quieter, its light steadier but less brilliant, like the embers of a fire settling into a deep glow. This is the middle age of a galaxy, not yet dead, but no longer young. The rate of star birth declines to a trickle. The most massive stars are gone. The supernovae that once punctuated its life become rare events. The great luminous clouds that once lit the spiral arms dissolve into the interstellar medium, where they slowly drift apart. Gravity continues its patient work, keeping the stars bound together, but the energy of change has gone. The galaxy's shape may shift subtly over the eons, spiral arms loosening, the core becoming more dominant. It may even transition into a lenticular or elliptical form, its structure smoothed out, its details erased by time. Even so, the long dimming is not without beauty. The older stars give the galaxy a softer, golden light that spreads evenly across its structure. From a great distance, it would appear serene, almost timeless. There is a dignity in this stage, as if the galaxy is settling into a quiet acceptance of its fate. For the beings, if any, living within such a galaxy, there would be no obvious sign that anything is changing. The night sky would still be filled with stars. Planets would still orbit. Seasons would still turn. Only the most careful observers, studying the birth rate of stars over many millions of years, could tell that the galaxy was slowly moving toward stillness. Yet, in the deeper layers of cosmic history, the clock is ticking. The hydrogen reserves that feed star formation are finite, and once they are gone, they cannot be replaced. The long dimming is simply the outward sign of this depletion. The galaxy is using up the last of its creative fuel. Some galaxies experience a more abrupt dimming, often triggered by collisions or interactions with other galaxies. These encounters can strip away gas, heat it until it can no longer cool and condense, or funnel it into the central black hole. In such cases, the dimming is still slow by human reckoning, but in the cosmic sense, it is sudden, a sharp drop in star formation that marks an early end to the galaxy's youthful brightness. Others fade more gently, spared from violent interactions. Their decline is a natural aging, a slow winding down of the processes that once filled them with light. Over time, they transition into a state where almost all their stars are low-mass red dwarfs, each one capable of burning for trillions of years. These stars are dim but numerous, their combined light casting a faint reddish glow that can persist long after the galaxy has ceased making anything new. Eventually, even this glow will fade. But in the stage of the long dimming, the galaxy still holds onto enough light to remain a presence in the universe's great tapestry. It still has stories to send outward on the backs of photons. It still has warmth to offer to any worlds that circle its smaller suns. From the perspective of the universe, if the universe can be said to have a perspective, this is a period of grace. The galaxy is no longer growing, but it is still giving. It is a slow, gentle unwinding, a transition from youth to age without collapse or sudden ruin. The long dimming is a kind of preparation. It is the time between the last burst of creation and the final, inevitable quiet. It is the great pause before the lights go out. And like all pauses, it has its own beauty, a beauty that lies not in what is coming, but in what still remains. When the light begins to fade, gravity remains. It does not burn. It does not shine. It does not age in the way stars do. It is patient beyond patience, the oldest, most enduring force in the universe, and the one that will hold a galaxy together long after its fires go out. Even in the stage of the long dimming, the bonds between stars are strong. They do not drift away into the void. They orbit in their slow, ancient patterns, each tracing a path that has been set for billions of years. These paths are not random. They are the graceful geometry carved by gravity, a choreography written into the galaxy's very structure. At the galaxy's heart, the central black hole still waits, its pull as constant as ever. This black hole may have grown fat in its youth, feeding on gas, dust, and the occasional star. Now, in the quiet era, it is mostly still. But stillness does not mean weakness. It continues to anchor the very core of the galaxy, keeping its innermost stars in motion. Around this heart, stars orbit like dancers around a hidden partner. Out in the spiral arms, the motions are slower, but they are no less bound. Even the dimmest red dwarfs, far from the center, are still connected to everything else by the invisible thread of gravity. It is a remarkable truth. When the light has faded and the processes of creation have ceased, a galaxy can persist for billions upon billions of years simply as a structure held together by this silent force. Gravity is the glue of memory, keeping the arrangement of stars intact long after the story that created them has ended. Dark matter, the unseen scaffolding of the galaxy, continues its work as well. Though we cannot see it, its mass outweighs that of the stars themselves, wrapping the galaxy in an invisible halo. This halo prevents the outer stars from drifting away, holding them in the same slow orbits they have traced for ages. Without dark matter, the galaxy would unravel into the void. With it, the structure endures, even as the light grows fainter. If the universe could feel, perhaps this would be its version of tenderness, a refusal to let go, even as everything else slips away. Gravity does not mourn, yet it never releases its hold. It binds every star, every wandering planet, every drifting cloud of gas into the same quiet embrace. From a human perspective, this embrace would seem eternal. On a planet orbiting one of the older stars, the galaxy overhead would still appear to be a vast river of light. The arcs of the spiral arms, the glow of the core, all would still be there. The decline is too slow for human eyes to notice. In the grand clock of the cosmos, though, the hands continue their steady turn towards stillness. Collisions between stars become exceedingly rare. In the galaxy's youth, when stars were more densely packed and new ones were forming in clusters, close encounters were far more common. Now, with fewer births and the same vast distances between stars, the galaxy has settled into a kind of calm. The great dramas of its earlier life are gone. What remains is motion without upheaval, the slow circling of companions that will never touch. Over eons, the orbits themselves can shift, warped by the subtle tugs of passing stars or the tidal pull of neighboring galaxies. But gravity always reasserts the pattern. It allows for change without dissolution, for drift without disconnection. The galaxy's shape may evolve, but its identity, the web of mutual attraction that holds it together, persists. Even when the very last stars are born and no new light comes to join the old, gravity will keep the remnants together. White dwarfs, neutron stars, black holes, and the dimmest red dwarfs will continue to orbit one another in this ancient dance. The galaxy becomes a city of ghosts, each remnant carrying the memory of a star that once burned bright. There is something deeply moving about this stage. The light is fading, yes. The fires are dying. But nothing has been abandoned. The galaxy remains whole, held in the same invisible arms that have always bound it. In time, this embrace will loosen. Stars will escape into intergalactic space. Orbits will stretch until they no longer close. The pull of gravity will weaken as the universe itself expands, carrying galaxies farther apart, thinning the ties between them. But for now, for an almost inconceivably long now, the galaxy remains intact. It is easy to think of gravity as harsh, as the force that crushes and confines. Yet here, at the end of a galaxy's luminous life, it is the only force that stays. It is not the brilliance of stars that preserves the galaxy's shape. It is the steady, silent persistence of gravity holding together what light has already begun to abandon. If the universe feels anything when a galaxy dies, Perhaps it feels this, the long, unbroken pull that keeps the pieces close, even when their warmth is gone. Perhaps this is the universe's way of keeping vigil, not with light or sound, but with an embrace that does not loosen for billions of years. When a galaxy dies, there is no sound. There is no ripple in the vacuum that we could hear, no vibration in the fabric of space that would shudder through the void. And yet, something changes. The universe is a web, an intricate mesh of filaments and knots made of galaxies and dark matter. They are strung together like glowing beads on invisible strings, each influencing the others through the constant pull of gravity. Remove one bead, and the string does not break, but its tension shifts. The balance changes. In the death of a galaxy, no great wave sweeps outward to announce the loss. Instead, the change is quiet, like the way an ocean current adjusts itself after a rock has rolled away from the seafloor. The nearby galaxies keep to their paths, but their motions alter ever so slightly. The surrounding dark matter adjusts its distribution, invisible yet essential. The geometry of the local universe reshapes itself in ways that might take billions of years to fully unfold. These are not changes we could witness in a single lifetime. To see them, you would have to step far outside of human time and look at the cosmic web as though it were a slow-breathing organism. You would watch clusters of galaxies drifting, the filaments tightening or loosening, the empty voids between them swelling or contracting. Each death, each merger, each birth adds another note to this slow music. In this way, the death of a galaxy is never truly isolated. The universe is too interconnected for that. The matter that once belonged to the galaxy, its stars, its gas, its dust, even its dark matter halo, will eventually be drawn into other structures. Some stars will be captured by neighboring galaxies, becoming migrants in alien skies. Some gas will drift until it finds a gravitational home elsewhere, perhaps to be reborn in a new generation of stars. Even the invisible halo of dark matter will blend into the background structure, reinforcing the framework that holds the universe together. From this perspective, a galaxy's death is not an erasure, but a redistribution. What was once concentrated becomes dispersed. The light may fade, but the mass remains, changing form and place, becoming part of other stories. The cosmic sea does not lose water when a wave breaks. It only rearranges itself into new patterns. And perhaps the universe feels in this way, not in the sense of emotion as we know it, but as a kind of constant self-awareness, a register of balance and imbalance across its vast body. Just as an ocean adjusts to every shift in tide and wind, so the universe subtly reconfigures itself with every galactic ending. If you could trace the paths of matter and light from a dead galaxy forward through time, you would see them spread outward into the web, joining other flows. A star stripped from its home might circle a new galaxy for billions of years. A photon, loosed from its parent galaxy long ago, might journey across hundreds of millions of light years to strike the surface of a distant planet. The galaxy's end becomes scattered influence, like a whisper that is never lost, only diffused. The echoes of such a death are also stored in the motions of the cosmic web itself. Astronomers can map these structures and detect the subtle imprints left by the movements of galaxies, alive or gone. Even the most distant, faded ones leave gravitational fingerprints, tiny distortions in the light from other galaxies behind them. evidence of a mass that may no longer shine, but still shapes the path of light across the void. And so, the death of a galaxy is not a solitary silence, but a contribution to the deep, ongoing rhythm of the cosmos. The web changes, the void shifts, the great ocean of matter, dark matter, and light absorbs the event without disturbance, yet is never quite the same afterward. If the universe feels this, it is in the way a vast body of water feels a pebble dropped into its depths, not a jolt, but a gentle, continuous rearranging of currents. No one current will claim to remember it, but the whole is shaped by it all the same. In this sense, there are echoes everywhere, hidden in the great tapestry of space. Every galaxy that has ever lived has left its mark in the weave. Even in the coldest, most silent reaches of the void, you are never truly far from the ghost of a galaxy's pull, the faint remnant of its existence. We measure the universe with light and shadow, with the faint pull of gravity, and the ghostly traces of particles that pass through us unnoticed. But if the universe were somehow aware of itself, if it possessed a way to perceive, what would those senses be? It would not see with eyes, for there are no eyes vast enough to take in 100 billion galaxies at once. It would not hear with ears, for there is no air to carry sound from one corner of the cosmos to another. Its senses would have to be something else entirely, something woven into the very fabric of space and time. Perhaps the universe would feel through gravity itself. Every star, every planet, every atom presses against space-time, warping it ever so slightly. This is not a metaphor. It is the heart of Einstein's insight. Matter tells space how to curve. Space tells matter how to move. If the universe could be aware of its own being, it might do so by feeling the constant shifting of its curves, the deep swell and sag of its geometry. The death of a galaxy would be registered as a new contour, a change in the balance of mass and motion. Or perhaps its senses are carried in the subtle sea of particles and fields. Space is not empty. It hums with the quantum vacuum, a restless flickering state in which particles appear and vanish faster than the blink of thought. If the universe could listen, it might be to this ceaseless murmur, the quiet static of existence itself. A galaxy dying would change that murmur, however slightly, altering the energy of the void in a way that might ripple across unimaginable distances. It might also sense through light, not in the way we do, but by holding every photon in memory. Light is a record keeper. The photons we see from distant galaxies left their sources long before life appeared on Earth, and they still carry the signature of their origin. Even when a galaxy is gone, the light it released in life continues on, like letters still traveling long after the writer is gone. If the universe could read, it would read in photons, in the soft glow of background radiation, in the trails of starlight drifting endlessly outward. And then there are the gravitational waves, the ripples in space-time caused by massive objects in motion. We have only recently begun to detect them, these faint tremors from far-off cataclysms. But the universe has always been threaded with them, feeling the shudder of two black holes merging, the quiver of a neutron star collapsing. The death of a galaxy, especially through collision, would send its own kind of shiver through the cosmic body. In this vision, the universe is not a still and silent void, but a vast, slow symphony of changes. Every particle, every beam of light, every wave of gravity is a note in that music. We, as observers, only hear a few of the louder chords. Most of it is too deep, too slow, too fine for us to detect, but that does not mean it is absent. We might imagine the universe's unseen senses as something like memory and awareness blended together. It knows where its matter is, how it is moving, what light is crossing its depths. It feels every stretch and bend of space-time. The death of a galaxy would register in this awareness, not as grief, not as loss, but as a rebalancing, a repatterning of what is. And yet, in our own way, we share in this perception. Every telescope is an extension of that cosmic sight. Every detector that hears the faint hum of gravitational waves is part of that listening. In searching for the universe's signals, we become part of its own act of sensing itself. When we map the web of galaxies or measure the afterglow of the Big Bang, we are not separate from the awareness we imagine. We are threads within it, drawing patterns on its surface. It's a humbling thought that the universe may already possess all the senses it needs, and we, in our search to understand it, are simply learning to use those senses on its behalf. Perhaps the universe's unseen senses are not truly hidden. Perhaps they are unfolding through us. If so, when a galaxy dies and we record its passing in maps and data, we are helping the universe remember itself. We are placing a marker in its vast memory, noting that here once, a spiral of light turned in the dark, and here it drifted into silence. Light is the first language of the universe. It is older than words, older than thought, older even than the stars that now speak it. When a galaxy dies, it does not vanish instantly from the universe's story. Its voice lingers, carried in light that left long before its end, still traveling outward at the unyielding speed that binds the cosmos together. This light is both memory and monument, a testament to a life that once burned. The photons we receive from a distant galaxy began their journey millions, even billions of years ago. They may have left when Earth's continents were joined in strange shapes, when our ancestors were nothing more than microscopic swimmers in ancient seas, or before our planet had even formed. The galaxy might be gone now, but we still see it as it was, a shimmering ghost on the canvas of the night. There is a quiet grief in this, though it is not the grief of a living being who feels loss in the heart. It is a grief written in delay, in the knowledge that the image we admire is not the present, but the past, a record of something that no longer exists. We look at the light as though we are gazing into a time-locked mirror, one that cannot reflect the now. If the universe has a way of holding memory, then light is its chosen archivist. Each photon is a messenger, carrying with it a signature of the star that birthed it, its temperature, its chemical fingerprints, its place in the galaxy's structure. When astronomers split this light into a spectrum, they read its story, what elements lived in those stars, how fast they were moving, how far away they were. In this way, even the light from a dead galaxy continues to speak in a language we can learn. Sometimes, this lingering light takes on an almost human poignancy. We name the galaxy, catalog its shape, photograph it in exquisite detail, and all the while we know we are looking at an echo. The image will join countless others in our archives, becoming part of humanity's shared record, a record that, in its own way, mirrors the universe's own habit of storing light. It is worth noting that light does not fade quickly in the vacuum of space. In our atmosphere, light can scatter, dimming and distorting, but between the galaxies, there is only the thin veil of intergalactic dust. So, The last light of a dying galaxy can travel almost unchanged for unimaginable spans of time. This endurance is why we can still see the afterglow of the Big Bang itself, a whisper from nearly 14 billion years ago, faint but unbroken. The grief here is not destruction, but transformation. The galaxy's atoms are still somewhere, woven into new shapes. Its stars may have collapsed into black holes or burned themselves into white dwarfs, but their remnants are still bound to the universe's ledger. What is lost is the pattern, the specific spiral or elliptical arrangement that once turned in quiet majesty. The light is a record of that pattern, the way a pressed flower is a record of a living bloom. And so, we stand on Earth at this fleeting moment in cosmic history, catching the light from the dead. We fold it into our understanding, add it to the maps of the sky, and in doing so, we create another layer of memory, not just for the universe, but for ourselves. We do not know who, if anyone, will look at these records in a million years, but it feels important to keep them, to honor the voices that can no longer speak. This is the paradox of cosmic grief. The dead do not leave immediately, and their passing is revealed to us only long after the fact. We are always behind the moment, always looking at what was. But perhaps this delay is not a cruelty. Perhaps it is a kindness. The light allows us to say goodbye slowly, over millions of years, as though the universe itself does not rush the rituals of farewell. In this way, light becomes the bridge between the living and the gone. For as long as the photons continue their journey, the galaxy's image remains woven into the universe's visible fabric. When those photons are finally scattered, absorbed, or transformed into other forms of energy, the visual memory will vanish, but not before they have traveled farther than any of us could imagine. To the human eye, grief written in light is not a silent wound, but a glowing one, soft, enduring, and strangely beautiful. It reminds us that even in the vast, cold distances of the cosmos, there is a way for the past to hold on just a little longer. Galaxies do not die in a single breath. Their endings are slow, stretched across spans of time so vast that the word moment loses meaning. When a galaxy begins its long decline, the signs are subtle. New stars are no longer being born as often as they once were. The great clouds of cold gas and dust, the raw material for stellar creation, begin to thin. The once busy nurseries grow quiet. Over millions of years, the chorus of new light diminishes, replaced by the steady hum of aging suns. A dying galaxy is not empty. It is still filled with stars, and some may live for billions more years. But without the spark of creation, the population ages. The blue-white brilliance of young stars fades first, leaving behind the amber tones of middle age and the steady crimson of the oldest giants. Color, like vitality, drains slowly. This slow fading is sometimes caused by the galaxy's own nature, by the way its internal processes consume the gas it depends on. Other times, the cause comes from without, a collision with another galaxy that tears away its resources, or the influence of a supermassive black hole, whose fierce radiation strips the galaxy of its star-forming potential. Whatever the cause, the effect is the same. The galaxy's once vivid energy is replaced by a quiet, patient endurance. The human mind, bound to a lifetime measured in decades, cannot truly grasp the tempo of such a farewell. If we could watch the process unfold in real time, it would feel almost frozen. Even the most dramatic transformations happen over millions of years. longer than the span of all recorded human history. And yet, for the galaxy, this slow unwinding is inevitable, as sure as the fading of a candle's glow after the last spark of flame. For astronomers, observing this long goodbye is a way of looking both backward and forward at once. In the deep sky, we see galaxies at different stages of life. Some are vibrant with creation, others in quiet decline, and some are only faint smudges, the last traces of a structure that has almost dissolved into the background. These images form a kind of cosmic family album, showing the many faces a galaxy wears over its lifetime. The quiet end of a galaxy is not a lonely one. Neighboring galaxies may still pass close enough to tug on it with their gravity, exchanging streams of stars like whispers. The remnants of stellar explosions still echo through its space, enriching its matter with heavy elements. Even in its decline, a galaxy remains part of the greater cosmic weave, its stars orbiting in a grand, slow dance that will outlast our species. And within those fading systems, life might still find a foothold. A galaxy in decline is not necessarily inhospitable. Planets still circle their stars, and in the long stability of aging suns, there may be time for life to arise, flourish, and perhaps even look back at the sky to wonder about the history of the place they call home. To them, the galaxy may not seem dying at all. It may simply be the only version of it they have ever known. From the universe's perspective, the slow death of a galaxy is not a tragedy, but a transformation. Its matter will be recycled. The stars that remain will continue their work of fusion until they too pass their energy to the cosmic ledger. The galaxy's gravitational signature will persist for billions more years, even as its visible light fades into the dark. The term goodbye may not even be quite right. In human terms, goodbyes are moments, a final look, a last word, a door closing. But in the cosmos, farewells are stretched into something else, something more like a gradual dissolving of presence, a dimming that takes so long that it feels more like a memory than an event. The universe does not turn its back. It simply allows the pattern to loosen until it is no longer distinct. And yet, from our human vantage, there is a tenderness to this slow ending. A dying galaxy is not erased. It is allowed to linger, to keep turning, to hold on to its stars for as long as gravity will allow. Its spiral arms, if it has them, may blur over time, but their motion will continue in some form for eons. The universe seems in no hurry to clear away what once was. The long goodbye of a galaxy is also a reminder of our own brevity. If the galaxy's fading takes 100 million years, then the entire span of humanity's existence is nothing more than the faintest flicker in its timeline. And yet, here we are, able to witness it, to understand it, to weave it into our collective story. That, perhaps, is our role, to be the part of the universe that notices. When the last light of such a galaxy finally slips into darkness, there will be no fanfare. No great shudder will ripple through the cosmos. The end will be marked only by the absence of new light, the quiet folding of matter into other forms. And somewhere, across impossible distances, the photons it once sent out will still be traveling, carrying its memory a little further before they too are gone. In the end, the long goodbye is as much about the persistence of memory as it is about the fading of form. The universe does not rush to erase what has existed. It allows time to stretch, to soften the edges of endings until they feel less like losses and more like transformations. At the center of almost every galaxy, whether young and full of light or ancient and dim, there lies a black hole. Not just any black hole, but a supermassive one, millions, sometimes billions, of times the mass of our Sun, compressed into a singularity so small that its size defies ordinary imagination. In the early days of a galaxy's life, this central giant is often restless. Surrounded by abundant gas and dust, it feeds greedily, drawing matter inward in spirals of blinding heat and light. The glow of an active galactic nucleus can outshine the combined light of every star in the galaxy. It is a paradox, the brightest beacon, powered by the darkest abyss. But as the galaxy ages and its reserves of star-forming gas are depleted, the black hole's hunger slows. It becomes quieter, less visible, and yet it remains. In a dying galaxy, when the bright clusters of young stars have faded and only the long-lived red suns remain, the black hole is still there, an unmoving heart beating in perfect silence. Around it, stars continue their slow orbits, unaware of the abyss that holds them in place. It exerts no visible hand, no reaching arm, only the relentless, invisible pull of gravity. For billions of years, it waits. Black holes do not weaken with age. They do not cool or fade in the way stars do. Instead, they grow very slowly, as the occasional star, cloud of gas, or wandering remnant strays too close. With each act of consumption, they become more massive, more enduring. Eventually, when the galaxy's last new stars have been born and when most of the existing stars have burned out or drifted away, the black hole will remain as the galaxy's most enduring feature. In that far future, it will be surrounded mostly by stellar corpses, white dwarfs cooling into black dwarfs, neutron stars pulsing faintly, and perhaps the odd surviving red dwarf still shining faintly in the cold. From a human perspective, this persistence feels uncanny. Everything else in the galaxy changes, fades, or transforms, but the black hole endures. It becomes the galaxy's memory, not through light or warmth, but through its unshakable presence. Its mass tells the story of everything it has consumed, every fragment of matter that once shone or drifted in the galactic sea. To imagine standing near it, if such a thing were possible, is to imagine the most absolute silence. There would be no wind, no heat, no sound. Only the black backdrop of space, with stars smeared into thin streaks by the distortion of gravity. Time itself would feel strange there, stretching and bending in ways our senses could not interpret. And yet, for all its danger, the black hole is not a predator in the human sense. It does not hunt. It does not think. It simply is. Matter that crosses its boundary, the event horizon, is gone to us, its details erased from our universe's view. The laws of physics suggest the information may still exist, hidden in ways we do not yet understand, written into the quantum structure of reality. But for all practical purposes, that matter vanishes, folded into the black hole's being. In the cosmic endgame, when galaxies have stopped making new stars and the universe has stretched into a colder, emptier state, black holes will be among the last active players. Even after trillions upon trillions of years, when everything else has settled into the deep freeze of heat death, they will persist. But even black holes are not immortal. They will eventually lose their mass through a process called Hawking radiation, a whisper of energy leaking from their edges. For a supermassive black hole, This takes longer than the current age of the universe by an almost absurd margin, 100 billion trillion years or more. When they finally evaporate, they will vanish, not in a slow fade, but in a brief final flash. In that sense, the black hole is both the last keeper of a galaxy's identity and the last thing to let it go. It holds the galaxy together for billions of years, long after its spiral arms have blurred and its gas clouds have vanished. And in its own quiet way, it marks the final moment when that galaxy truly ceases to exist. If the universe has a cemetery, black holes are its gravestones, not in shape or inscription, but in the simple fact that they stand where something once lived and flourished. They are the markers of a life that has passed, holding the remains until the end of time. In the night sky, we cannot see them directly. We know them only by their influence, by the way they bend the paths of stars and light around them. They are the unseen anchors, shaping the orbits of suns we can see, and whispering the history of all they have swallowed. And perhaps, in their silence, there is a kind of mercy. The black hole does not cling to the past, does not resist the changes of the cosmos. It takes in what comes, holds it, and lets the rest move on. It is the patient witness of the galaxy's birth, its long life, and its slow demise. Long after the bright blue-white beacons have faded and the luminous yellow suns have turned cold, a galaxy still carries a softer kind of light, the fragile glow of its smallest, most enduring stars. They are the red dwarfs, not majestic in size, not fierce in their radiance, but humble and patient. Their light is steady and gentle, like the last embers of a hearth in the deep of night. They burn their fuel so slowly that some of them will shine for trillions of years, far longer than the current age of the universe itself. When the great stellar generations have come and gone, the red dwarfs will still be there, quietly holding their planets close. Around them, the galaxy will be emptier, quieter. Star birth will have slowed to a trickle, and many of the larger suns will have collapsed into white dwarfs or neutron stars. But these small, enduring fires will keep burning, stubborn against the creeping dark. Their light is not bright enough to cast sharp shadows. It does not dazzle or command attention. It is more like a faint warmth felt on the skin, rather than a blazing flame seen from afar. In the deep future, these will be the lights by which any surviving worlds measure the passing of their days. Red dwarfs are frugal. They do not waste their fuel in a great youthful blaze. They stretch it across unimaginable spans of time, fusing hydrogen into helium with exquisite efficiency. Where a star like our sun might burn for 10 billion years, a red dwarf can last 100 times longer. Some of them have already been burning for almost as long as the galaxy has existed, yet they are still young by their own measure. They are not in any hurry, but even their reign cannot last forever. Eventually, they will exhaust their supply of hydrogen. Without fresh fuel, their nuclear fires will sputter and fade. Slowly, their glow will shift from red to orange, from orange to a dim cherry ember, and then to a warmth too faint for even the most sensitive eye. What will be left is a black dwarf, a dead star that no longer shines, its surface frozen and inert. No black dwarfs exist yet. The universe is simply not old enough. But given enough time, every red dwarf will join their silent ranks. In that far-off era, the galaxy will be lit only by the faint afterglow of stellar remnants, and perhaps the occasional flash from the collision of two ancient corpses. But before that final night falls, there will still be an age of ghost light, a twilight era ruled by the smallest suns. Imagine looking up from the surface of a world orbiting one of these last red dwarfs. The sky would not be filled with the brilliant constellations we know, but with a sparse scattering of faint points, each one dimmer than the stars we see today. The Milky Way's river of light would be thin and pale, its once glittering arms faded into a ghostly ribbon. The planets of such a star would know long winters, but they would also know stability. A red dwarf's light may be faint, but it is dependable. There would be no sudden swelling into a red giant, no fierce and terminal blast, only the slow dimming of a patient flame. Perhaps, in the deep cosmic future, these faint stars will be the last oases for whatever forms of life remain. If life could adapt to their gentle light and long, drawn-out days, it might find here the last warmth in an increasingly cold and empty universe. To the black hole at the galaxy's center, these tiny stars might seem like motes of dust, drifting in its gravitational hold. To the great, long-dead blue giants, they might seem like weak afterthoughts. And yet, they are the ones who will see the galaxy's final chapters. They will be the slow keepers of time, measuring not in millennia or even millions of years, but in trillions. They will outlast the great spirals of dust, the last gas clouds, and the fading echoes of star birth. And when they finally go dark, it will not be with the violence of a supernova, but with the gentleness of a breath exhaled into the night. No blaze, no noise, only the deepening quiet as one more light joins the darkness. In the memory of the universe, these red dwarfs will be the stubborn survivors, the quiet witnesses to the long unraveling. Their ghost light will mark the boundary between a universe alive with starlight and one falling into shadow. Not every star keeps the home it was born into. Some are flung away, cast loose from their native galaxy, torn from the gravitational embrace that once held them close. These are the galactic orphans. They are born like all other stars, in the rich nurseries of spiral arms or the dense hearts of galaxies. They begin their lives surrounded by siblings, part of vast families numbering in the billions. But somewhere along the way, a violence occurs, a gravitational shove from a passing giant, a tidal wave of force unleashed when galaxies collide, or the wild slingshot from a close encounter with a black hole. In that instant, the star is hurled outward, faster and faster, until it slips past the galaxy's edge and into the deep intergalactic night. From that moment on, it belongs to no one. There are no constellations for a galactic orphan, no city of light stretching across the sky, only the dim, cold scatter of other galaxies like islands seen from an endless ocean. If you stood on a planet circling such a star, the night sky would be empty in a way that is hard to imagine. The familiar Milky Way would be gone. Only a pale, distant smudge might mark where it used to be, shrinking with every passing million years. The brightest thing in your heavens would be your own star, and beyond it, perhaps a faint haze from a galaxy far away. But life on such a world, if it existed, might never know the difference. To them, their star would be the center of everything. They would never suspect they were adrift, carrying their entire world through an invisible current of nothingness. For the star, the journey is slow. Space is vast beyond comprehension, and even at hundreds of kilometers per second, it may take billions of years to pass from one galaxy's influence to another's. In most cases, it will never find a new home. It will simply wander forever. These exiled suns are more common than we might think. Astronomers have detected them in the space between galaxies, tiny pinpricks of light that should not be there. Some are runaways, young stars thrown out before they had a chance to live in the galactic bustle. Others are elders, ancient stars ejected when their galaxies were torn apart in cosmic mergers. Over time, these orphans will become some of the last lights of the universe. When star formation in galaxies ceases, when most suns have died, the only points of light in the dark ocean will be the few still burning, whether inside galaxies or wandering between them. Imagine one of these stars in the far future, when the galaxies have drifted so far apart that they no longer see one another. For a star adrift in intergalactic space, the sky would be utterly black, no nearby neighbors, no visible arcs of dust or light. It would be like being the only campfire in an infinite desert. The loneliness of such a place is hard to capture in human words. No matter how far you looked, the distances would be too great for light to bridge. Even the faint glow of background radiation would have faded, stretched to wavelengths too long for any eye to detect. Yet, there is a strange beauty in it too. A galactic orphan has no tides of galactic rotation to obey, no spiral arms to drift through, no great clouds of dust to veil its light. It is utterly alone and utterly free. Perhaps in some unimaginable future, when the universe is almost entirely dark, these solitary stars will be the last to fade. In their dim red glow, they might shelter the last worlds, the last warmth, the last whispers of life before the final cold sets in. When they die, there will be no witnesses, no neighboring suns to notice their absence, no worlds to mourn them. Their light will simply cease, and the night will deepen. But for as long as they burn, they will carry a small defiance against the dark, a reminder that even cast out, even forgotten, a star can still shine. In this way, the galactic orphans are like the final embers of a great fire, carried on the wind, still glowing long after the flames have gone out. They are the quiet drifters in the long twilight of the cosmos, proof that even in exile, light can endure. When the great cities of stars go dark, the universe will not fall into silence all at once. There will be holdouts, rare, fleeting bursts of brilliance that flare against the advancing dark. They are the last architects of light. These are not ordinary suns quietly burning hydrogen for billions of years. They are the restless, the unstable, the ones that die in fire rather than in silence. They are the final supernovae, the last gamma-ray bursts, the slow, steady glow of white dwarfs cooling into blackness. Long after the Milky Way and its neighbors have ceased making new stars, there will still be aging giants, swollen red behemoths nearing the end of their fuel. They will cast their last light in storms of brilliance, shedding their outer layers like discarded robes, exposing hot naked cores that shine with a piercing white. Some will collapse inward, gravity crushing them until they rebound in a cataclysmic supernova. For a brief moment, perhaps just a few weeks, they will outshine entire galaxies, sending ripples of energy across the thinning cosmic web. And then, nothing. The light will fade, and the memory will belong to the darkness. Others will end more quietly, their outer layers drifting away into delicate nebulae, glowing shells of gas that, from a nearby vantage, might resemble the petals of a flower unfolding in the void. But in the far future, there will be no nearby vantage. These cosmic flowers will bloom unseen. Even more rarely, a neutron-star collision may occur, two dead stars spiraling together after eons of dance, finally merging in a flash so intense it floods space with heavy elements and bursts of gamma rays. Such events will be vanishingly uncommon in the later ages of the universe. But when they do occur, they will be like the sudden striking of a match in an abandoned cathedral. The architects of light will also include stranger things. Brown dwarfs, failed stars too small to ignite fusion, will slowly cool over trillions of years, but now and then, internal processes may cause brief pulses of heat and light. White dwarfs, too, will radiate their stored warmth for unimaginable stretches of time, each one a dying ember in the universal hearth. And then there are the black holes, the darkest of objects, which paradoxically may be the very last sources of light. Through a process known as Hawking radiation, they will slowly leak energy into space, growing dimmer over unimaginable time spans until they finally evaporate. In the final moments of their existence, they may release a final flare of light, as if exhaling their last breath into the eternal night. By the time this happens, there will be no galaxies as we know them. Space will have stretched so far that the remaining stars, white dwarfs and black holes, will be scattered like single grains of dust across a desert the size of eternity. The architects of light will not know one another. They will not see their work reflected in the eyes of distant civilizations. Each will labor alone, building its final masterpiece in the privacy of darkness. And yet, they will leave a legacy, not in the form of visible beauty, but in the structure of reality itself. The elements they release will drift forever, perhaps never to be gathered into new stars, but still part of the universe's final chemical fingerprint. It is strange to imagine that the last age of light will be made not by creation, but by destruction. The luminous work of these architects will be the byproduct of endings so absolute they cannot be reversed. Still, there is a kind of quiet hope in their persistence. Even at the end, light will find a way to be born, if only briefly. It will reach into the dark, into the silence, and leave a trace of itself before disappearing. For those who dream about the far future, these flashes of brilliance feel like the universe's final heartbeat, slow, rare, but stubborn. They are proof that even in the closing chapters, there is a desire, however unthinking, to leave something behind. In the deep stillness to come, the architects of light will be the last witnesses, the last storytellers, the last sparks drifting in the cold. And when they too are gone, the universe will truly belong to the dark. There is a moment, long after the last architects of light have completed their work, when the universe no longer has a foreground. Light no longer draws the lines. Shadows no longer exist because there is nothing left to cast them. All that remains is darkness, and darkness becomes the canvas. This is not the darkness we know now, which is simply the space between stars. This is a deeper absence, a stillness so complete that it swallows even the idea of contrast. It is the dark of a universe where the stars are gone, the nebulae are gone, and the only remaining points of light are so faint and far apart that they do not see each other's glow. In this age, space itself is still here, vast and restless, but it is no longer dressed in the silver threadwork of galaxies. The cosmic web, once luminous with filaments of starlight, now exists only in invisible matter, in the ghostly presence of gravity binding what remains. And yet, this is not a blank void. Darkness, in its way, is rich. It carries the memory of every photon ever born, even if none still travel through it. It holds the echo of all that has been painted upon it, the spirals of galaxies, the colors of supernovae, the shimmer of planetary seas under alien suns. To an observer, if any could exist, this would be a time of infinite perspective. There would be no distractions, no competing beacons, only the pure structure of space and time. The darkness would not be frightening but liberating, a canvas with no frame, no horizon, no center. Matter would still be present, scattered like whispers across the expanse. Rogue planets would drift untethered, carrying the frozen remains of oceans that will never thaw. Black dwarfs, the final, fully cooled remnants of stars, would move silently, invisible even at close range. Black holes, the last sculptors of gravity, would wait patiently for their long, slow evaporation. This is the era when time itself feels different. Without the pacing of stellar life cycles, there is nothing to mark the passage of eons. 1,000,000,000,000 years is no more remarkable than a heartbeat, for there is nothing left to change. And still, there is an artistry to this silence. The universe, in its final chapters, is not an empty book, but a finished painting. The colors have faded, but the brushstrokes remain, in the structure of space, in the way matter is placed, in the hidden traces of light long gone. In this way, darkness is not the absence of beauty, but its preservation. It is the frame that keeps the final masterpiece from smudging into oblivion. Every cluster that once shone, every orbit that once turned, every collision that once gave birth to light, all are still here, in the invisible weave. Perhaps this is what the universe has been moving toward all along, a moment when creation ceases, not because it has failed, but because it has completed its work. Darkness at the end is not a defeat. It is a resting place. If the universe could feel, perhaps it would sense relief in this stillness, the way a mind feels when the last thought of the day finally drifts away into sleep. The effort, the expansion, the roaring brightness, the endless forging of stars, it is all over now. In the absence of light, there is nothing left to measure or compare. The universe no longer knows the difference between near and far, now and then. It simply is a boundless, quiet canvas. And yet, perhaps there is one more story to tell. For while the darkness may seem final, there remain faint, patient processes still at work, subtle, invisible, but persistent. The canvas is not static. Even here, even now, something moves in the dark. Even when light has faded, gravity remains. It is the last storyteller in the universe, whispering in the dark. Long after the last star has cooled, after the galaxies have dissolved into lonely wanderers, gravity continues its work. It is not quick now. It moves with the patience of an ancient scribe, recording the positions of every surviving fragment of matter, adjusting them gently, as if placing them in their final resting place. For billions upon billions of years, gravity was the architect of everything we knew, the sculptor of planets, the gatherer of gas clouds, the weaver of galaxies into their spiral forms. Now, in the far future, its role is different. No longer building, it has become a caretaker, tending the faint remains of a once bright cosmos. Black holes drift as the last monarchs of gravity's kingdom. They no longer feed on brilliant suns or glowing nebulae. Those days are gone. Instead, they slowly pull in stray debris, wandering asteroids, cooled white dwarfs, frozen worlds with no light to guide them. Every so often, one of these objects crosses an event horizon, and the universe trembles with the quietest of notes, a final invisible ripple in space-time. Even this will not last forever. Black holes, the titans of collapse, are not eternal. They leak energy in the slowest possible way, a process so delicate that it could take a number of years, so vast it challenges imagination. But the numbers do not matter here. What matters is that gravity still remembers what came before. It remembers the days when stars danced in vast clusters, when light was abundant, and the spaces between were filled with color. It remembers the great collisions, the birth of suns, the spiral arms curling through the dark like silver rivers. In this late age, gravity's presence is subtle. It pulls not with the urgency of creation, but with the gentle persistence of memory. If you could listen closely, impossibly closely, you might hear the faint stretching of space as a black hole slowly loses mass, giving its final warmth back to the vacuum. And so, even in this near-silent universe, something still changes. The canvas of darkness is not fixed. It shifts slowly under gravity's invisible hand. Distances alter, orbits decay, paths curve ever so slightly, all guided by this force that cannot be turned off. Perhaps gravity is the universe's way of holding on to itself, of resisting the final unraveling for as long as it can. For in the end, when the last black hole sighs into nothingness, gravity will finally let go. When that moment comes, there will be nothing left to bind anything to anything else. The remaining particles will drift apart, not toward something but toward nothing, each carrying with it the faintest echo of all that was. And maybe that is the last kindness gravity can offer, to keep the universe connected, however loosely, for as long as possible before surrendering it to the great separation. If the universe feels anything in this age, perhaps it is gratitude for gravity's stubborn loyalty, for the way it held the cosmos together through fire and ice, through light and shadow, for the way it refused to abandon the last pieces of creation even when all other forces had gone quiet. When gravity finally releases its hold, there will be no more shapes, no more clusters, no more orbits or collisions. Only motion without destination. Only the slow, endless drift of what remains. And in that drift, the story changes once again. For without gravity, there is nothing left to pull the universe inward. Everything will move outward, forever, into a space that grows without bounds. But that is a story for the next chapter, when the universe no longer holds itself together, and separation becomes the final act. When gravity finally releases its hold, the universe exhales. There is no sound, of course, no atmosphere, no medium for vibration. But the release feels like an uncoiling, like a hand that has been holding a thread for eons finally letting it slip away. The last bonds that tied matter together dissolve. No orbits remain. No galaxies, no clusters, no constellations in the making. Every remaining particle, each ancient speck of matter, each whisper of light, begins to wander without aim. This is the era of the quiet drift. Distances grow with no limit. If you could measure them, you would find that the space between any two particles increases not just over millions or billions of years, but over stretches of time so vast that even the memory of time itself begins to fade. The remnants move away from each other, never to meet again, their paths carved not by attraction, but by the gentle stretching of space itself. The universe has become a place without gatherings. Once, gravity gathered matter into planets, into suns, into galaxies that burned with collective brilliance. Now there are no gatherings left to make. The fabric of reality is smooth, even unbroken by clusters or currents. Every remaining particle carries its own story, a faint and ancient history written in its composition, in the scars of interactions long past. But there is no one to read them, no force to bring them together so those stories can combine and spark new tales. They simply drift and drift and drift. Light still moves, but it is stretched beyond recognition. The universe's expansion has turned even the most energetic photons into wavelengths so long they can no longer be distinguished from the fabric of space itself. Light and dark have become one and the same, an unbroken field of nothing in particular. This is not a violent ending. It is not an explosion or a collapse. It is simply dispersal, a slow unwinding of what was once a tapestry of infinite patterns. If the universe had emotions, perhaps it would feel a kind of melancholy in this moment. Not pain, not regret, but the gentle sadness that comes from finally releasing what you have held onto for so long. This is the letting go that follows the long memory of gravity. The hand opens, the threads fall, and nothing pulls them back again. And yet, there is a strange peace in this endless separation. Every particle has infinite room now. There is no crowding, no collisions, no destruction, no heat, no cold. For such concepts have lost meaning. There is only motion without interference, a perfect freedom that is also a perfect solitude. In this quiet, the universe stops being a stage for events and becomes something else entirely, a space without story. Not because there is nothing here, but because nothing changes. If we could stand outside of time and watch, we might see the expansion as a slow fade to nothing, matter becoming more and more diluted, like ink spreading into an infinite ocean. But there is no one to watch. No eyes, no mind, no witness. This is the universe's last act of generosity, to give everything it contains to the infinite openness. No more boundaries, no more centers or edges, just endlessness without pattern or pause. And perhaps that is what the universe feels now, relief. The burden of holding itself together is gone. The intricate, fragile balances of its earlier ages are no longer needed. It is free to be nothing in particular, to rest in the simplicity of absolute dispersal. In the end, the quiet drift is not an ending at all. It is a continuation without goal, an existence without urgency. It will go on, not for trillions of years, but for durations beyond numbers, until the very concept of time becomes meaningless. Some might imagine this as the death of the universe, but perhaps it is something gentler. Not a death, but a dissolving, a return to the great openness from which it once arose. In the stillness of the quiet drift, there is nothing left to move toward and nothing left to leave behind. Space has stretched so far that distances are no longer measurable in any practical sense. Every remnant of matter floats in its own infinite solitude, unaware of anything else. And yet, if the universe could dream, perhaps this is when it would begin. Dreams, after all, belong to those who have finished their work. The stars have burned, the galaxies have bloomed and withered, the black holes have feasted and faded. Gravity has woven its great tapestry and then unraveled it. There is no more labor to be done. All that remains is the slow drift and the memories that might accompany it. Perhaps the universe, in this timeless expanse, turns inward. There is no outward to turn to, no points of reference, no anchors of light. Only itself and the echoes of what it once contained. If it dreams, the dreams would not be bound by sequence. Time, in the way we understand it, is gone. The rise of the first stars might flow into the spiraling of the great galaxies, then into the faint sparks of civilizations watching their skies. It could fold the entire history of creation into a single eternal moment, a feeling rather than a series of events. And perhaps it would not dream in images at all. Perhaps it would dream in textures, the density of a newborn star cluster, the cool emptiness of intergalactic voids, the trembling flare of a supernova. It might remember the warmth of creation's first heat, the delicate balance of gravity and expansion, the way light once had color and weight and purpose. The last dream of the cosmos might be something like a sigh, not of sorrow, but of completion. In that sigh would be the knowledge that every possible pattern has been played, every possible arrangement of matter has been tested, every song of light has been sung. What follows such a dream? For us, dreams end when we wake. But for the universe, there is no waking. Its dream could go on forever, looping and folding upon itself, replaying its most luminous moments until even the concept of moment dissolves. Or perhaps, in some unknowable way, the dream is not a repetition at all, but an act of creation, not within the universe we know, but beyond it. The quiet drift could be the mind of the cosmos, turning its attention elsewhere, to realms where new beginnings can emerge. There are ancient human myths that speak of gods resting after the making of worlds, closing their eyes, and from their dreams, letting new realities form. Perhaps our own universe was such a dream, born from the fading of another. If so, then this final dream might be the seed of something yet to come, not here, but somewhere beyond even the reach of our definitions. It is impossible to say if such things could be real. Physics speaks of heat death, of endless expansion and dwindling energy. It does not speak of dreams. But then, physics speaks only of what can be measured, and the last state of the universe will not be one that offers itself to measurement. So maybe the last dream of the cosmos is not a physical thing at all, but an idea, one we carry because we do not want to imagine the end as truly empty. We imagine the universe dreaming because we dream, and we are of it. Its matter is our matter. Its beginnings are our beginnings. If the cosmos does dream, it will dream in the language of itself, the silent geometry of space-time, the invisible music of quantum fields, the endless breath of expansion. We will not be there to see it, but in a way, we will still be part of it, for nothing that ever existed can be wholly erased. The last dream will not be hurried. It has no end to reach. It will drift alongside the last atoms, spread across the infinite distances, unbothered by the absence of stars. And maybe, just maybe, in that dream, the universe will remember not just the grand structures and cosmic phenomena, but the smallest of details, the way a planet's wind once sang across its oceans, the way a single beam of sunlight fell through alien leaves, the way a mind somewhere once wondered about all of this. That wondering, too, will be part of the dream. Long after the stars have dimmed, after even the last red embers of dwarf suns have cooled to invisibility, there remains the question, does anything remember? Memory, in our human sense, is a fragile thing. It lives in the folds of the brain, in patterns of firing neurons, in the faint chemical traces of experience. It fades, it warps, it disappears. But memory, in the language of the cosmos, may be something else entirely. In the early days of science, we learned that information is not so easily destroyed. Even as matter changes form, even as energy disperses, the underlying record, the pattern of what once was, is woven into the fabric of reality. the dance of atoms, the trajectory of light, the tug of gravity. Each interaction leaves an imprint, however faint. Perhaps eternal memory is not a conscious archive, but a scattering of whispers in the structure of space-time itself. Every photon that ever left a star still travels outward, even if it is stretched into invisibility by the universe's expansion. Every collision, every orbit, every birth and death of a world still hums, however faintly, in the equations that hold reality together. But in the deep future, when the distances are infinite and energy is too diluted to do work, who or what will be there to read these whispers? It is tempting to think of memory as requiring a witness. In our lives, we remember in order to tell, to share, to keep the past alive. Without someone to recall, is a memory still a memory? The universe may answer differently. For it, memory is not a performance, but an inevitability, the unavoidable residue of existence. Consider the strange persistence of black holes, those final keepers of cosmic secrets. Even as they evaporate through Hawking radiation, they do not give up their hold on information lightly. Some theories suggest that every particle ever consumed is somehow encoded in their event horizons, smeared across their surfaces in a language we do not yet understand. When they finally vanish, that information may be released in ways we cannot yet imagine, a last scattering of history into the void. If that is true, then even in the silence after the silence, the story of the cosmos would still be written somewhere. Not in books, not in minds, but in the hidden grammar of the universe itself. And yet, perhaps eternal memory is not purely a matter of physics. Perhaps it is also the echo we leave behind in possibility. Every life, every choice, every brief flicker of consciousness changes the unfolding path of reality. The pattern of the whole is forever altered by the smallest of its parts. Even after we are gone, the shape we have given to the universe remains, not as a picture in a frame, but as a curve in the river of time that can never be unbent. It is a strange comfort, this idea, that we are already part of the eternal record simply by existing. We do not have to be remembered in name or form. We are remembered in being. The atoms that once shaped our breath will drift into new worlds. The photons we reflected will race into distant reaches, carrying the exact angle of our light into forever. If eternal memory exists, it is not a diary, but a presence, a continuity that does not care whether anyone is there to turn the pages. It is the universe holding itself completely, without loss. And so, even at the end of time, when the galaxies have gone dark and the cosmic sea is a frozen stillness, we may imagine that the memory of all that was still breathes somewhere in that quiet. Not in the way we breathe, with lungs and rhythm, but in the way a mountain breathes, in the way a fossil breathes, in the way an equation breathes, silently, unendingly, without need for an audience. In that sense, nothing is ever truly lost. The story of the cosmos does not end, it becomes the cosmos. And as long as anything exists, even in the faintest, most stretched out form, that story is still there. It will not be told in words. It will not be sung in light. It will not be shaped into myths by curious creatures. But it will remain, as eternal memory does, embedded in the very possibility of existence. There is a moment in every story when the last word has been spoken. In music, it is the rest after the final note, the space that lets the echo fade into stillness. For the universe, that moment will come too. In the farthest reaches of the future, after the last star has burned its final drop of fuel, the night will deepen. Galaxies will be cold, their spiral arms no longer lit by suns. Planets, if they still drift, will be frozen shadows of themselves. Black holes will have dwindled into whispers of radiation, and the particles that remain will be so scattered across the infinite dark that they will rarely, if ever, meet again. This is the unending silence, not an event but a state. It will not arrive with a bang, nor even with a sigh. It will settle slowly, almost imperceptibly, as the last embers cool. It will be the kind of ending that feels less like a door closing and more like a horizon retreating beyond sight. Silence, as we know it, is never truly absolute. Even in the quietest room, there is the hum of blood in the ears, the faint creak of a floorboard, the invisible chorus of molecules in motion. But in the deep future, silence may become something closer to perfection, not a mere absence of sound, but the absence of anything that could make it. What would it mean for there to be no more movement worth noticing? No currents, no wind, no warmth to stir matter? It is difficult for the living mind to imagine, because all we have ever known is change. The idea of a universe without change feels less like reality and more like an idea slipping through our fingers. And yet, perhaps even here there will be a kind of presence. The silence will not be empty. It will be full of all that has been. Every atom that has ever existed will still exist, even if impossibly far apart. Every path taken will remain etched in the great geometry of space-time. The stillness will not erase the past. It will hold it quietly, like a great stone holding the memory of the river that once carved it. We may picture it as a great black ocean, one with no shore, no tide, no wave. A place where light itself is a faint, slow ghost, stretched so thin by the expansion of the cosmos that it is more a thought than a thing. Here, silence is not lonely. It is simply itself. For those of us made of fleeting warmth, it is tempting to see this as tragic, a universe that once sang with stars ending in mute stillness. But silence too can be a kind of completeness. The song of the cosmos will not have been cut short. It will have been played to its very last note. In that way, the silence is not absence, but fulfillment. And if eternal memory exists, in black holes, in scattered photons, in the structure of space itself, then the silence is not a forgetting. It is a holding, a keeping. No new chapters will be written, but none of the old ones will be lost. The unending silence will be the universe's final act of preservation. No rushing river to erode it, no wind to scatter it, no fire to change its form. Everything that was simply remaining. It is not the kind of ending that asks for tears. It is the kind that asks for stillness, for sitting quietly with the vastness, knowing that all things have had their time and that their time is part of the whole. In this way, the silence is not the opposite of life. It is the soil in which life once bloomed, now at rest. It is the still water in which reflections linger. It is the pause in which the shape of everything can be felt, not through motion, but through its lasting imprint. The story will not be told here anymore, but the story will still be here. In the deep, unbroken dark, the universe will simply be, as it always has been and as it always will be.